Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, March 26th, Erev Pesach. Today's the 13th of Nisan. Tomorrow is Erev Pesach, and we've already sent out all the information about what one needs to do in order to fulfill the mitzvot of Shabbos and Lechem Mishneh. Please find that information for a review in case you still need to go over that. I actually want to have us think about something on our Seder plate. And I have to admit that this year I might change my practice, at least part of my stringency. It regards the charoset. The charoset is that sticky, sweet, perhaps a little bit spicy, winey product that we have at the Seder. This is what the Mishnah says. Oh, I should skip down here. They would then bring, bring before the Seder leader matzah and chazeret, which is most likely then the type, lettucey version of maror. V'charoset u'shnei tavshilin. And charoset, and then 2 cooked items. Afal pi, says the Mishnah, she'ein charoset mitzvah. Even though having charoset isn't a mitzvah. Rabbi Eliezer, but Rabbi Tzadok omer mitzvah. There's a dispute as to whether or not there's a mitzvah to use charoset at the Seder. Now we know the mitzvah is the mitzvah to eat matzah and to eat the Karban Pesach, and to eat them, the Karban Pesach al matzot murarim yochluo, that you should be eating it with bitter herbs. To recall, you eat the Karban Pesach and have some bitterness to it, although it's not a bad garnish. If you've seen some of the good recipes for that might draw on something like that, even these days. But it's to remind ourselves of the bitterness of the experience, along with the freedom of the Karban Pesach's message. And nowadays we don't have the Karban Pesach, as you realize, and the question though is, in the mix without the Karban Pesach, is there a need for a charoset? A machloket, a disagreement. Now, as you go through the Gemara and discussing this, you come to realize that there are different understandings of the purpose of the charoset, and 2 emerge. One concludes that it's zecher latit. That's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. It is in commemoration of, to remind us of the mortar that the Israelites had to make in order to build those pyramids with the bricks. And so the consistency of the charoset would need to be a certain type of consistency if it's zecher latit. And Rabbi Levi says differently. It is instead zecher latapuach. It's a commemoration of the apple. What does that mean? And so they refer you to a pasuk which describes that tachat tapucha or ticha, that beneath the apple tree you were aroused, and that it was there that the daughters of Israel gave birth to their children, perhaps conceived their children. And you have 2 very different renderings of what the charoset is for. Does it remind you once again of the slavery? And so it's thick. It might have straw in it, or straw-like spices in it. Or is it something that reminds us of that wonderful spirit of the Israelites? And so apples belong in it. And so the ingredients of our charoset take form based on these opinions, and indeed different parts of the world had different ways to approach it. But so it is. That's the very, very quick version of the charoset. Now, ultimately, this is what the Shulchan Aruch says. Says the Shulchan Aruch, ve'achar kach, and afterwards, yikach kezayit maror, you take an olive size of maror, and then v'yishakenu kulo b'charoset, v'lo yishenu b'tocho, and you should immerse it into the whole thing into charoset, but it should not remain there. Shelo yivatel tam miriruto, because we were afraid that the charoset, the sweetness of the charoset, or whatever other chemical reaction, will take the kick out of the bitterness of the maror. And for this reason, you need to shake off all the charoset from your maror. And so we always have this discussion at our seder. Before I tell you the debate at the seder, actually, the Ramah says v'yeshomrim de'ein l'tov lo, that you really shouldn't, really be dipping it into the charoset. V'cheinu b'minhagim v'chein re'iti nohagim, and so it is in the Sefer Minhagim, and so I've seen it practiced, and for the second time, that's talking about the korech. So okay, so here's a Shulchan Aruch, and it tells you what to do when you dip it in. Some didn't like you dipping it in, because, or at least concerned. On the one hand, we might want to take away the super heavy duty kick, but then don't leave it in for very long. And yet, certainly he says you should shake it off. So here we have my seder and so many other seders. People will take a little bit of maror and have, gobs and gobs of charoset on it, because they don't want to have the maror hit them the way the maror might hit them. And so that you're not supposed to do, right? You're supposed to shake it off. And I used to be pretty careful to shake it off and just leave a little bit of charoset. A little bit. I could taste a little bit of charoset, but the maror is what's most active for me. This year I'm going to be tempted to go for a little bit more charoset. It's been a year that's been hard. We all know. It's a 1-year anniversary of for me, of my own COVID illness. Last year, my family, as I described in the bulletin article, my family was in 3 different rooms, bedrooms, having a very quick seder and trying to do it. It actually was lovely from where we were. We were exhausted, and it wasn't the seder anyone could, certainly anybody would have want to have. And so this year I'll be at the table with not many guests. Only my one family member from the outside will be with us. Yeah, that's true. But I'm feeling that I definitely want to make sure I have the kick of the maror, but somewhere I want a little extra charoset, just to sweeten it up a little more than usual. We all could use that. And so I want to offer you this prayer that, the usual traditional phrase that we use is Chag Kasher V'Sameach. You should have a happy, kosher, and joyous Chag. But then there's the other version of it, which, where does it come from? You should have a Zisin Pesach. You should have a sweet Pesach. Sweet Pesach. Pesach's got the maror in it. And the answer is, yeah, let the charoset live strong. And indeed, we can remember the difficult times and celebrate the freedom and the emergence from it, God willing, as we move through these next weeks and months ahead, to be able to live our lives, our Jewish lives, to the fullest, community lives to the fullest, soon enough. Not soon enough, but soon in our days. Have a Zisin Pesach.